rain, wind, and the possibility of snow. That is the story for the week ahead across the United Kingdom. And if you've been dealing with mild, damp conditions or waiting for proper winter weather, the pattern is about to shift. Right now, conditions across the country are remarkably varied. The Scottish Highlands saw temperatures drop to -5 this morning, bitterly cold with a sharp wind. Meanwhile, across the Channel Islands, Jersey experienced significant wind and rain this afternoon, worthy of a warning. That contrast tells you everything you need to know about the battleground setting up over the next 7 days. I've examined the latest model runs from the Met Office, ECMWF, and GFS. I've looked at the live radar data, and I've analysed the synoptic patterns developing across the North Atlantic and Scandinavia. What emerges is a complex picture, not a straightforward cold spell, not mild Atlantic flow, something in between, a fight between air masses that will determine whether we see snow, sleet, or cold rain next week. Let me walk you through what's happening and what to expect. The current situation is dominated by slow-moving weather fronts. We have high pressure firmly established over Scandinavia. That block is preventing Atlantic low-pressure systems from moving through in their normal west to east pattern. Instead, these lows are being forced southwards, stalling and dumping prolonged rainfall across our shores. Look at the radar from this morning. 12 hours ago, a weather front sat across southwest England. Normally, an Atlantic low would push that system from southwest England all the way out into the North Sea within 12 hours. We are not seeing that. The front has barely moved. It's crawling eastwards at a snail's pace. That is the signature of blocking. The high over Scandinavia is acting like a wall. This morning saw rain extending across central and southern areas of England and Wales, some of it quite persistent. A rain warning remains in effect for eastern Scotland. Now, that might seem unusual. Typically, Atlantic systems hit western Scotland hardest. Eastern Scotland sits in the rain shadow. Not this time. The wind direction has shifted to southeasterly. That S picking up moisture from the North Sea and driving it against the higher ground of the Grampians and Cairngorms. Relief rainfall, heavy at times. That warning stays in place through tonight and into Thursday. Temperatures at 8 o'clock this evening were around 8 to 10 degrees across much of England and Wales. Scotland saw 5 to 7 degrees. Chilly, but not remarkable. The Baltic states, by contrast, are experiencing bitterly cold conditions. -10 to -15 in places. That's the air mass we read potentially importing over the next 5 to 6 days. Wednesday looks abysmal, to be frank. Further heavy rain moving through in the morning. The low continues to rotate from the south, coming up against that Scandinavian block. It has not positioned over top of us, which is why we remain unsettled, but it is close enough to halt progress. These systems just dump their precipitation and sit there. You'll see more slow-moving rain throughout Wednesday, into Thursday as well. The wind direction remains southeasterly, pressed up against that high. That SY eastern Scotland continues to bear the brunt. Further precipitation on Friday and Saturday, but slowly the pattern begins to shift. Those Atlantic fronts stop pushing in. Showers start to stream from the North Sea instead, some of them turning to snow. That's the very cold air nudging in from the continent. By Sunday, we're just about seeing that colder air mass arriving. I don't expect it more widely until Monday or Tuesday. And even then, some model runs show milder air trying to stream back in as early as Monday or Tuesday. That S when the real battle begins. Cold air from the east meeting milder Atlantic air from the west. Where those air masses collide, we could see heavy snow. Battle lines drawn right across the British Isles. Let me be clear about the uncertainty here. All the models agree on certain points. Cold air will move into some capacity. We're not looking at a severe and overwhelming easterly wind, no beast from the east, at least not in the short to medium range. What we are seeing instead is a middle ground scenario. Cold air moving through, but also milder sectors hitting that colder air. That means snow is plausible, perhaps likely in places, but it also means highly variable temperatures. Some areas seeing rain, some seeing snow, perhaps a mix. Drawing exact rain-snow lines at this stage is nearly impossible. The models are still disagreeing on critical details. The depth of cold, the exact wind direction, the extent of the block. Those details make all the difference to where the cold air reaches. Temperature-wise, Wednesday looks average, 8 to 10 degrees across most areas, nothing spectacular. Around average or slightly above. Thursday similar, 8 to 9 degrees. With the rain and cloud, it'll feel colder than the thermometer suggests. Friday sees temperatures nudging lower, 5 to 8 degrees in the afternoon. Saturday similar, 5 to 8. Sunday holds at 5 to 7 degrees, maybe 8 in a few spots. Nothing remarkable in the next 4 to 5 days. But notice the trend. Temperatures slowly dropping as that easterly flow establishes itself. Scotland turns much colder as we head towards the weekend. Those easterly winds pushing in. I suspect we'll turn more widely below average by early next week. Now let's look at the model disagreement. This is where it gets interesting. The GFS model, as of the latest run, shows a pattern that many 1T enjoy. Cold air moving in, yes. but primarily for Scotland and northern England. The rest of the country remains closer to average or just below. Not mild, but not bitter either. 4 to 5 degrees with rain. Cold rain. When it's pouring down at 4 or 5 degrees, that S miserable. Nobody wants that. And that S, exactly what the GFS is suggesting. The precipitation charts from GFS show lows continuing to pile in, those southeasterly tracking lows into next week. Some snow mixing in, particularly over higher ground in northern England and Scotland. Areas used to seeing snow in late January, but mostly rain further south. The ECMWF tells a different story. This model is considerably more supportive of a cold, even very cold pattern. Easterly winds much stronger come Sunday. Proper easterlies. Cold air pushing in for all areas. Even the minus 10 degree isotherm at 850 hectopascals moving through. That is significant. The far south and southwest see that cold air as well. Low pressure tries to displace it but doesn't succeed. The minus 10 isotherm stays involved. Yes, milder sectors attempt to win out later next week. But it remains a battle. All the way out to 360 hours, 15 days. A bit of a breakdown later on, but at least 4 or 5 days of cold, if not very cold conditions. Could be very snowy in this scenario. The ECMWF precipitation charts show lots of rain initially over the coming days. But progressively into the weekend, easterly winds emerge. More showers turn to snow in the north and east, mostly snow by Sunday and Monday. Weather fronts pushing in sea snow along those boundaries. Messy later next week before eventually turning more to rain as milder air mixes back in. If we look at the GFS ensemble members, all runs show below average or average temperatures. No mild runs. It's just a question of how far below average. The rule of thumb for snow is the minus 5 degree isotherm at 850 hectopascals. Minus 8 is for more widespread snow, including low-lying areas. Minus 5 is the minimum threshold in most cases, though it can be a couple of degrees milder following a severe cold spell when residual cold air remains at the surface. Most GFS ensemble members cluster around that minus 5 threshold, fewer reaching minus 8 to minus 10. But still a considerable number, perhaps a few more milder runs appearing today compared to a few days ago. But we are still in that realm. What concerns me is the lack of consistency between runs. I've examined the past few ensemble runs. They're removing all over the place, not shifting in one direction, up and down depending on the run. That indicates ongoing uncertainty. Sunday to Monday is when the switch happens. The next couple of days, the models will have to firm up. We're getting into crunch time now, within the 5-day time frame. Very unusual for the synoptics not to be 90% decided at this range. Yes, intensity of air masses and exact wind directions can be ironed out near the time. But whether we see minus 8 to minus 10 air moving in versus the 0 degree isotherm, that should be sorted within 5 days. Especially with a frontal system from the Atlantic against a Scandinavian high, I am expecting runs to converge within the next 24 to 48 hours. The ECMWF ensembles show a big temperature drop next week. That S where the ECMWF is disagreeing with GFS. Big drop from most runs, but still some mild runs appearing. Then a slight upward trend closer to average, but still a few degrees below. Whatever the models resolve around the 25th or 26th, 5 to 6 days from now, once that S resolved, the following period will become clearer as well. At this stage, some runs stay less cold, others turn very cold. We'll have a much better idea in the next day or two. The ECMWF is considerably colder than GFS. Ensemble mean around minus 6 to minus 7 early next week. GFS around minus 4. That S quite a significant difference. Doesn't T sound like much, but in practical terms, it S the difference between widespread snow and cold rain. The midnight ECMWF run was actually a bit more uncertain. The latest run has trended towards that colder pattern. We'll see whether that holds. The key question is the strength of the block. How strong will that Scandinavian high be against those Atlantic weather fronts? That S the deciding factor. A lot of precipitation is coming. It's just a question of what type. Rain, sleet, or snow. We are not looking at a clear-cut cold spell with widespread bitterly cold air. Some runs a few days ago were hinting at that. They've backed off, but they've increased precipitation at the same time. Higher chance of snowfall, but also a higher chance of it being slightly milder than extreme cold would suggest. There's a realistic scenario where this time next week, parts of the country are covered in snow. There's an equally realistic scenario where it S cold rain. Until the synoptic patterns firm up, there is very little point taking precipitation charts too literally. I've shown you the range. GFS with high-level snow mainly for Scotland and Northern Hills. ECMWF with more widespread wintry conditions, similar to what we saw earlier in January. Now, let me talk about specific impacts and what you should be doing. For eastern Scotland, particularly around the Grampians and Cairngorms, you're already dealing with heavy rain. That warning remains in effect. Rainfall totals of 80 to 120 millimetres are possible through Thursday and Friday. Above 230 metres elevation, expect that to turn increasingly to snow as we head into Friday. Wintry showers following into the weekend. The air turns steadily colder through Saturday. If you are in that region, flooding is a risk. The ground is saturated. Rivers are running high. Don-T drive through floodwater. 2 feet of water will float most cars. 6 inches will knock you off your feet. If you encounter a flooded road, turn around. It's not worth the risk. For the rest of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England and Wales, you are looking at rain transitioning to sleet and potentially snow by the weekend. Exactly when and where depends on how the pattern resolves. Higher ground will see snow first. The Pennines, the Lake District, Snowdonia, the Scottish Highlands. Lower elevations are less certain. If you live in these areas and snow does arrive, remember the basics. Clear pavements and driveways on Friday evening when snowfall eases, not during active snowfall. Use rock salt, not table salt. If you re-caught driving in snow and your car gets stuck, cardboard or an old carpet under the tyres works a treat. Increases traction. Many of you already know that trick. For central and southern England, the uncertainty is highest. You might see nothing more than cold rain. You might see a few centimetres of snow. It depends entirely on where that battle line sets up between cold and mild air. If snow does arrive in areas unaccustomed to it, the disruption will be significant. Most people in the southeast, Don-T keep snow shovels. Roads want to be gritted as thoroughly as they are further north. If you can work from home on Thursday or Friday, that might be wise. Across the south, you've been experiencing temperature swings recently. One day 12 degrees, next day 3, then back up. People have been poorly for weeks. Sinus trouble, headaches, general malaise. That back and forth ends when sustained cold moves in. At least the temperatures will stabilise, even if they re-lower. For everyone, regardless of location, check on elderly neighbours and relatives. They feel the cold more acutely. Make sure they have adequate heating. Stock up on essentials if you live in rural areas. Bread, milk, batteries, torch. Not panic buying, just sensible preparation. If the power goes out in a snowstorm, you'll be glad you have candles and a torch to hand. Watch for ice. Black ice forms when temperatures hover around freezing with moisture on the roads. It's invisible, often appears on bridges and overpasses first. If you are driving and the steering feels lighter than usual, you might be on ice. Don-T brake suddenly, Don-T accelerate hard. Gentle inputs. A word about expectations. Many of you remember the Great Storm of 87. You lived through the Burns Day Storm of 90. You've seen the beast from the east in 2018. This is not that. Not even close. Gusts in 87 exceeded 100 miles per hour. Temperatures in 2018 dropped to -14 in parts of Scotland. What we're looking at next week is significant, but it's not unprecedented. Some areas may see proper winter conditions, others may see nothing more than dreary cold rain. That is the nature of these battleground setups. They messy. Forecasters Don-T like them because they difficult to pin down. The public doesn't like them because you can T-plan with certainty. But here's what I can tell you with confidence. It will be colder than it has been. Precipitation will be around, potentially heavy at times. Some areas will see snow. Exactly where and how much remains uncertain for another day or two. I know some of you are frustrated with the ongoing predictions of cold easterlies that keep getting pushed back. Every year, the long-range forecasts tease winter weather that doesn't materialize. I understand that, but this pattern is different. The Scandinavian high is real. It's already established. The question isn't whether cold air arrives, it's how much and how far south it gets. For those waiting for snow, particularly in East Anglia and the Midlands, I know you've had a quiet winter so far, several winters without decent snowfall in some areas. This pattern has potential, but I'm not going to promise anything until we see how these systems develop. Better to underpromise and overdeliver than the reverse. The jet stream is being influenced by cold air over the eastern United States. That S strengthening the flow, but at S likely to shoot through the Mediterranean, causing low pressure there while maintaining high pressure over Scandinavia. That gives us easterly winds. Whether those winds bring Arctic air or modified continental air makes all the difference. Keep an eye on updates over the next 48 hours. That S when the models should converge on a clearer picture. By Thursday, we'll know with much greater certainty whether we are looking at widespread snow or localized wintry showers confined to hills and mountains. For now, prepare for cold, wet conditions at minimum. Hope for snow if that's what you want, but don't be disappointed if it doesn't materialize everywhere. This is Britain. The weather rarely cooperates fully with forecasts or wishes. One final thought. Winter means cold and wet. This isn't the apocalypse. It's not the end of the world. It is January weather doing what January weather does. We've survived worse. We'll survive this. Stay safe. Check the Met Office for updates. And remember, whatever happens, it won to last forever. Milder air will return eventually. It always does. I'll have another update in the next day or two once the models firm up. Until then, keep warm, stay dry,